Joining me now is Trump ally, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Senator Graham, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. Let's start with some of the concerns that former President Trump's allies have had about him not staying on message in the way that he is talking about his new rival, Vice President Kamala Harris. Here's what Nikki Haley had to say about that. Take a look.
The campaign is not going to win talking about crowd sizes. It's not going to win talking about what race Kamala Harris is. It's not going to win talking about whether she's dumb. It's not, you can't win on those things. I think the campaign needs to focus. That's the main thing. Look, this is a winnable election, but you need to focus.
Senator, do you agree with Nikki Haley's assessment?
Yeah, I don't look at Vice President Harris as a lunatic. I look at her as the most liberal person to ever be nominated for president in the history of the United States. She's going to the Soviet Union playbook to lower prices called price control. She wants to eliminate private health care. She's for reparations. She's against fracking. She's for the Green New Deal. On and on and on. So I would make it about policy. A nightmare for Harris is to defend her policy choices. Every day we're not talking about her policy choices as vice president, and what she would do as president is a good day for her and a bad day for us.
And of course, her campaign has said she's actually not opposed to fracking. But the broader question here,
right.
Senator Graham,
how can you be for the Green New Deal? Wait a minute. How can you be for the Green New Deal and not be opposed to fracking?
Well,
that's BS.
Okay.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Let me ask you, big picture, bottom line me here. Do you think former President Trump should stop talking about Vice President Harris's race and intelligence?
Yeah, I think, in my view, is that me and Nikki need to go to Georgia. We're giving advice on TV to President Trump. He's got a lot of critics. He's got a lot of advisors. But to Nikki Haley and DeSantis and Youngkin and all these great people we have, let's get together and actually campaign for the guy rather than just give advice. But in the advice-giving column, here's what I would say. President Trump can win this election. His policies are good for America, and if you have a policy debate for president, he wins. Donald Trump, the provocateur, the showman, may not win this election. So I'm looking for President Trump to show up in the last 80 days to define what he will do for our country, to fix broken borders, to lower inflation. The numbers that Americans are living with under Harris-Biden are terrible. 50% increase in gas prices, mortgage rates going through the roof, grocery costs are really high. That's what I would focus on. Policy. Yeah. Policy is the key to the White House.
All right, let's talk policy. Of course, we did get new inflation numbers this week, their lowest level since 2021, but I do want to talk to you about policies. Former President Trump talking about tariffs when he was at a rally in Pennsylvania yesterday. Of course, his proposal to impose tariffs on all goods coming into the United States. Take a look at what he had to say.
A tariff is a tax on a foreign country. That's the way it is, whether you like it or not. A lot of people like to say, oh, it's a tax on us. No. It's a tax on a foreign country.
Senator, do you acknowledge what almost every economist agrees to, which is that ultimately consumers bear the burden of tariffs?
In theory, yes, but how do you get people to change their behavior when they're cheating you? You put a tariff on their products. I want to put a tariff on every country who buys oil from Iran to stop them from buying oil from a terrorist country. So if you're Russia and you're China and you're buying oil from the Ayatollah going around sanctions, I'd like to put a tariff on products coming into America so you'd stop helping a terrorist. Here's Trump's policy on tariff that I embrace without hesitation. Whatever you do to us, we're going to do to you. His number one view of tariffs is reciprocal. If you put a tariff on our products, we're going to put one on yours. Let's try to eliminate tariffs to the extent we can. That makes a lot of common sense to me. Trump was strong against China. He actually put tariffs on China's cheating practices, and they changed their behavior. He threatened to put tariffs on Mexico unless they helped us with immigration, and they actually did. Tariffs as a tool to change behavior can be good.
Well, and just to be clear, the Nonpartisan Tax Foundation determined that those tariffs that you mentioned imposed some $80 billion of new taxes on consumers. So just to be clear, you would support his plan to impose tariffs on all goods coming into the U.S.
Just to be clear, I support his idea that whatever a country does to us on tariffs, we're going to do to you. So if you make a car in Europe and we put a 10% tariff on it, and we make a car in America and sell it to Europe, and they put a 30% tariff on our cars, we're going to 30%. That's the Trump policy. That makes eminent sense to me. So out there, to those who are watching what Trump may do in the second term, I think he will use tariffs to change behavior, and I think he will try to impose tariffs on people, impose tariffs on our products. Let's all go to zero if we can.
All right. Well, look, we are all about to watch what happens at the Democratic National Convention. I want to talk about something that happened at the Republican National Convention. The Republicans rolled out their platform, and on the issue of abortion, it did not call for a national abortion ban for the first time in 40 years, Senator. You, of course, have supported a 15-week national ban on abortion. Here's what you said about the platform right before it was rolled out.
If we change our platform, and we buy into the narrative, being pro-life is bad politics, being strong for the Second Amendment is bad politics, we're going to be net losers, because the people who believe like we do are going to abandon us because we've abandoned what makes us different.
Senator, do you still think the party's new position is a mistake?
No, I think what they were able to do is kind of thread a needle here. They talked about, the unborn child has a constitutional right to life. President Trump is a states' rights guy, with exceptions for rape, incest, life of the mother. I believe most Americans want those exceptions. They're opposing any law that makes a raped woman carry a child. Like 80% of Americans are against that. But also most Americans are against late-term abortion. But he's our nominee. He believes the states' rights approach is the way to go. The platform I'm okay with. We'll continue to have this discussion, but we're not going to win or lose based on abortion. We're going to win or lose based on, can we change the policy trajectory of this country? Can we lower gas prices? Can we control the border? Can we lower your food prices? The good news is we can, because we did. You know, we're not going to the Soviet Union playbook to fix the problems of America. We're going to capitalism, American competition, entrepreneurship, and common sense to lower prices for America.
Senator, would you advise Mr. Trump, if he were to be elected, to support a federal ban?
I'm going to keep being me. I think most Americans are opposed to late-term abortions.
But so is that a
my
yes,
personal
Senator?
views.
Is that a
70%.
Yes?
Well, I'm going to keep saying that there should be, at some point, the baby feels pain. You know, our policy, in France, they limit abortion at 14 weeks. A 15-week ban doesn't ban abortion. It protects unborn children from an excruciating death. This is a debate worth a great country to have. But this election's not going to be about abortion. It's going to be about the economy and a world on fire. And the nightmare for Kamala Harris is to have to defend her policy choices and explain to the American people why the world is not on fire. Governor Whitmer said Biden was a great president. He's been a disaster. And the disaster will continue with Harris.
Well, let's talk about the rest of the world, since you bring it up.
Yes.
And I want to start by talking about Mr. Trump's running mate. You have expressed criticism of Senator Vance in the past, particularly on the issue of the war in Ukraine. You've called his arguments against military support garbage. You are just back from a trip to Ukraine. We're going to get to it in 1 minute. But first, on this question, do you think that Senator Vance has enough foreign policy and national security experience to step in the role of president on day one, if that were to be necessary?
Yeah, I completely support him. I think he'd be a much better choice than Walz. That JD could go into office and pursue an American First agenda. His concern about Ukraine is we're stretched too thin. We're giving them weapons we may need to fight China. And here's my response to what he says. The best way to prevent fighting China is to be strong on Ukraine. If China sees Putin winning, by force of arms, taking territory of Ukraine and getting away with it, they're going to take Taiwan. This disaster of an invasion by Putin is really biting him. NATO is stronger. He's an indicted war criminal. He's lost the entire European continent almost for gas customers because of his invasion. So I want to deter China, and the best way to deter China, I think, is to get Ukraine right. And I just got back from Ukraine. Yeah. I am in awe of these people. We were told Kyiv would fall in 4 days. Well, 2.5 years later, they're taking Russian territory. They're in Russia. They've taken half of what Putin seized from the initial invasion, and we need to pour it on and help these people when it comes to dealing with this Russian invasion to reset the world.
All right. Well, since you told us about your trip to Ukraine, let me ask you about the Middle East very quickly. President Biden has said on ceasefire talks in Gaza, quote, that they are in the end game. Do you think that is accurate?
Yes.
Do you think they're close to getting a deal to release the hostages?
I hope and pray, but right back to Ukraine. The number one request of President Zelensky of me was to go to President Biden and ask him to lift the restrictions on how they can use weapons. Canada did this. We need to go all in, allowing them to use these weapons to get Putin to the negotiating table. We're not going to win in Ukraine by military conquest of Moscow or Kyiv, but we got to get Putin to the table, and he will come to the table when the pain gets too great. Lift the restrictions, President Biden, on the weapons that have been late to get to Ukraine. As to the ceasefire, I'm hoping and praying the hostages come back, but I'll say this until I can't say it anymore. What is the day after like? If we get a ceasefire and we don't have the Arabs come in and take over the Palestinian file, we will be right back at it again. So normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel is the key to a permanent peace in the Mideast. And I've been working with President Biden to achieve that goal, and I still think we can.
Well, you take me to my final question. You've been working with President Biden for quite some time, including in the Senate. Do you think your former colleague in the Senate made the right decision by deciding not to run again, Senator Graham?
Yeah. I think he did. I think he did it for the country and for his party. I've always enjoyed my relationship with him. We have deep and wide policy differences, but to President Biden, give Ukraine the ability to fight back to end this war on favorable terms. I will help you land the biggest deal in decades in the Mideast. I will help you find a way to have Saudi Arabia and Israel normalize. I will push Israel to do what they need to on the Palestinian file, to get MBS to take over Palestine and reform the West Bank. I wish you well. Let's end on a high note here,
All right.
President Biden.
Senator Lindsey Graham, thank you so much.